Though introduced in Legacies as a new card type, plots have seen a big improvement in Way of the Force.
We take a look at the plot cards in detail and suggest which ones might be worth building a deck around.
And we're joined this week by Zach Bunn from Team Covenant to provide some insight into the early meta and which of these plots are seeing some frequent play.
This is episode 95, Way of the Plot.
You have been well trained.
No. You don't have to carry a sword to be powerful.
I won't fail you.
Oh, do not.
I'm not afraid.
Please don't try.
That soundbite brought to you by Crazy Kim.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Chance Cube. We're excited today that Zach Bunn is going to be joining us a little bit later to help us talk a little bit about plots and to plug all the stuff happening over at Team Covenant because they've got some cool stuff happening.
I wish I lived closer.
You know what I wish I lived closer to?
Me!
Well, that would be cool.
San Diego.
San Diego Comic-Con. Because I need to know what's happening with Star Wars books like yesterday. Because
that is my bucket list con. Someday I will make it there. Oh yeah.
Do they have a podcast stage? We should.
You should have looked for that last year.
I know.
It doesn't do me any to go a week out.
Because last year FFG handed out those Macquarie dual art cards.
Those were amazing.
Cool. Very cool.
I need to find someone who's going who will keep an eye out for that because
our buddies Dan Z from Coffee with Kenobi is there.
You have a good point. I will send him a message.
I saw him. He's already sharing some goodies, so he's already out there.
I haven't heard any
I follow him on Twitter,
promos.
so yeah.
Yeah, last time we didn't know about it until they got there. So but with Thrawn Alliances coming up in a couple weeks. All I've got is Destiny to keep me entertained, so that's enough.
No. Whatever shall you do?
I'm going to talk about Destiny for the next hour. What are you going to do?
I'm going to listen and poke fun at you.
If we're gonna talk about San Diego Comic-Con, I got some news for that. I have a couple friends that are currently there, and my Hasbro order is in.
No,
it's fat, but
did you get
Porgs and Chewie?
You gotta get me the Chewie.
Afra.
I need the Chewie.
Well, it's too late. It's already mine.
I need the interactive Chewie. It's all I need in my whole life.
I already got it. It's awesome. And then the Death Star, and then all the Marvel stuff that Hasbro came out with. There's just so much. I'm spending way too much money on Hasbro right now. But their San Diego stuff is awesome.
It is pretty cool. I'm actually really glad that I kept that Ariel thing, even though that's Amanda, not you. But I want that Chewie, man.
Yeah,
dirty.
That sounds cool.
I'm driving Jim crazy about that thing.
What's new with you and Destiny, Jason?
What are you doing, buddy?
I'm dying to play more Way of the Force. Like every time I'm like, Sarah, let's play some more. We got some games in today. We got some games in a few days ago. I've built a built to last deck around Luke and Ezra. I've got a very poor attempt at the deck you were talking about last week. Snoke Thrawn, the vehicle.
Ooh,
you have all the
parts.
How
do you like it?
I haven't played it yet. That's the one I haven't played yet. Sarah's working on a Rex Clone Trooper deck, which is actually it needs a little polishing, but it's faring pretty well. Man, she can activate like everything and control the battlefield all the time. It's not even fair. And all those good Awakenings control cards that were like when you control the battlefield, like she's got them all now because she always controls the battlefield.
That is definitely a good strategy if you can utilize controlling the battlefield often. There's a lot of good cards that you can get into
all the time. And then
that's interesting.
Today it's a very poor build, and I'm hoping it can do something. I've got a Bo-Katan Yoda Crime Horde deck.
Interesting.
So far I haven't fired it off, but it needs some more removal and needs less. Try to put more shield generation, less removal. I need to fix that. But
more shield generation in a Yoda deck.
Well, Yoda's normal, so I have to hope I pull that like stupid upgrade that makes him elite, which I did one game, which was pretty cool. And then I kept healing with Force Heal and Dex's Diner, like it was like having better than Second Chance. Even I do have Second Chance in the deck too.
Wow.
Do you have two of that card that makes him elite? I'm assuming.
Yeah. I try to get it out there.
I figure that's a 2 of.
But I haven't gotten there yet. I think it's kind of more of a fun build. I don't think it's going to be very competitive, but I want to fire off Crime Lord at least once.
It would be fun.
In a hero deck.
Just to flip a table or two.
Just yeah. Any new decks that you're excited about?
Yeah, actually, so my Thrawn Snoke was doing well, but now everybody's playing that deck, I found.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not into playing what everybody else is playing.
Mm-hmm.
So now after I started playing it, everybody else seems to be playing it as well. But Cad Snoke, it's more my style. It's a lot more aggressive. It ramps very fast, and once Cad is taken out, which is usually the first target, my build is deploys like a lot of redeploy. So that just goes on to Snoke, and you can still use this dice to focus up, and he can still really kind of hold his own for a while at least, usually to finish out the round. So it's been pretty good. It's been pretty aggressive. I run so like Dark Ritual and stuff to try and bring Cad back, but the resource generation isn't there. Like you run into with most blue villain is you have trouble building resources, and it's no different in a blue-yellow is what I'm finding. Unless you're running unless you're like trying to do that running characters like Jabba or something like that. So it's been fun. I'm still kind of on the fence on what I'm going to bring to Nationals. So we'll see. But Cad Snoke has been very fun to play and a little bit more aggressive and fast paced, which is more my style.
Yeah, Cad's fun. Cad was fun in the last set, and I feel like he hit a hot spot early on in the last meta and then disappeared.
Yeah, real quick.
While.
And I think that might be what happens to in
could.
This. Yeah, I think he's gonna see a burst for a little while and then kind of fizzle out. But it's fun to get him with his LL30 and really put out some real early damage real quick.
Oh yeah.
And
that's why he's fun. Yeah, right. I totally agree.
And doing Snoke's power to resolve for 4 damage pretty consistently is
cool.
Nice. Yeah.
I dig that. That's
well,
awesome.
Before we jump into the news, just a shout out about the bar at the top here. We're trying to get some money for the Nova Open Charitable Foundation, a charity organization by the Nova Open for gamers, from gamers, supporting the Fisher House Foundation, Doctors Without Borders, and breast cancer research. If you have the means to donate, hit the box at below the stream here today, or if you're listening to the show after the fact, thechancecube.com/Nova. Half of the proceeds will go to them, and half the proceeds will go to underwrite the cost of the live stream of the U.S. National Championship from the Nova Open. And let's head on to the news.
Let me take that back, huh? You'll find what you need.
So there's been quite a bit that's happened, I think, in the last week. More news around the community and less news from FFG. We're going to save a fair amount of it for next week's show because we definitely want to get to our topic quickly this evening. But one of the really interesting things is, I would say, early on this month, FFG set up a part of their forums that was for official rulings, right? It was to get rulings out faster instead of the one-off emails and then us waiting for a rules reference, right? This is a way to get smaller updates faster to us. And there was actually a huge update today, about 4 hours ago. They made some new official rulings that was pretty interesting. And I think some of these things come from some things that happens at Worlds and things that have happened around the community. Of course, there's some clarification about way the Force cards, like DJ. One of those things is they're saying is, his ability allows you to deal indirect damage based on the number of dice that you removed, and the damage is dealt as one source of damage. So that's kind of, there's a way that you could potentially break that up and abuse that ability. So that's interesting there. And what was the other thing that I thought was really interesting? I guess the most interesting thing about this was the rule about illegal play, illegal action, right? This was something that in very high level competitive play, a lot of players will, if an opponent makes a mistake, will actually request that they follow through and just discard the card they played and still eat the resources or whatever it is, right? FFG has officially announced now that when you play a card, you declare your intent to play it, you check all the restrictions, and if for some reason you don't meet the restrictions, then the action is deemed illegal, and illegal actions get reversed. Card that goes back into your hand, you don't lose the resources. So it's a very forgiving rule, I think. I haven't seen a lot of chatter about it. I don't know if either of you have, but I think it's I think it's nice. I mean, that's something I would do as a player. I don't know.
Now, what what level of play is this at? Is this at every level of play?
I mean, it sounds like these are going to be added to the rules reference eventually, right? It's referencing pages on the rules reference. So I would assume any level of play that requires the rules references to be followed, then yes.
At high levels of play, when you try to perform an illegal action, you are that's basically the end of your day or that round at least. Usually you end up forfeiting that round. And I think that's how it should be at higher levels of play. I can see at a casual level, this is good, because I mean, when you're new to the game, you might not see something, or you might spot a blue character and your blue character is dead, so you didn't play it, or you can't play it or whatever. But in high levels of play, you should know what you're playing. You should be game wise, and if you're not, then you should be punished for it. And this doesn't punish people for trying to do illegal play. And I'm not really okay with that. I think you should be punished for it.
I know there were a couple of mentions or kind of caveats to that rule that were saying that if it was an action that made you shuffle your deck, that you couldn't reverse it. Oh, and what was the other one?
Yeah, but that just means it's already shuffled. So then you just leave it shuffled.
But you can't reverse the action at that point. You can't take it back. You'd have to go through with it. Or
sure. And same with revealing your cards. Obviously, your opponent's going to know your cards. It is very forgiving, and I agree. I don't know how I'll feel one way or the other. I mean, I guess I'm not a high level competitive player, so I don't know if I would always let my opponent take the action back if they don't meet the cost. It's like, well, you can't easy pickings that, your yellow character's dead. But in some places, people would say if you play easy pickings and you don't have a yellow character out, then then that card is discarded and you still have to pay the resources or whatever.
Oh, at Galactic Qualifiers, I saw a person playing one of my buddies noticed that he played an illegal action. When the judge came over and ruled it, they were DQ'd from that round.
Wow.
So, and that's at a Galactic Qualifier. At a Nationals or something at that level, I think it should be the same way. You definitely should be punished. Then that's my initial reaction. I'm sure. I mean, maybe it might change later, but that's how I feel at this point.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say that I looking at it from that perspective, because I read it today and I thought, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. That'll clarify some questions that I've seen come up in play, and even a couple times at competitive. But you make a really good point on that, Mike. That really, if you're playing at that caliber, where do you draw the line of, oops, I made him, where do you fix that?
Yeah, I could just try and get away with it all the time. And, it's caught.
And unfortunately, there's probably players that may.
Yeah.
That's the thing with that happens in competitive play. I'm not saying most players out there would, but there could be some.
Yeah. We've got a lot of interesting notes and tidbits about some store championships that have happened over the last few weeks. Hopefully they'll come up in our discussion. I think they should.
I'm sure one particular one will. But
real quick before we move on from these official rulings, the point value cannot be changed during gameplay. If a character becomes elite, its point value does not change. That was huge on the forums. I saw everybody talking about this. So I'm glad that that was the first ruling they made. Of today, so I think it was they're definitely listening.
That's a good clarification.
Yeah.
That's a good clarification.
Well, there are a fair number of FFG, the Under the Demo organizer Matt Holland and some of the other staffers are on those Facebook feeds and read them, so they know what we're talking about.
Mike, I just can't seem to get the cards I need in the booster packs I bought. I'm still missing a Mother Talzin, a Darth Maul. And I need some more battle droids. That 5-wide droid deck isn't going to build itself. And I have all these extra Yodas.
Seriously, Kim, I told you. Check out Armada Games. You can buy and sell Destiny cards on their website, shoparmada.com. It's just a few simple clicks and bam, you are done. I used it just the other day, and now I got two mall savers heading my way.
Hey, what are you guys talking about? We're in the middle of a break here.
Jason, you know how you've got all those extra cards from all those booster boxes you open? Mike says you can sell them online super easy.
No way, seriously? How? I've got to make room before this next set comes out.
Jason, whether you're new to the game or a seasoned vet, Armada Games has just what you're looking for. You can buy and sell your Destiny singles all from the comfort of your living room. Pre-order the latest sets of boosters and find the droids you are looking for. You can also check out their selection of Destiny accessories. And you'll get free shipping on orders over $75. For an even better deal, be sure to use the coupon code TheChanceCube and receive 5% off your Destiny purchase. Visit their website at shoparmada.com. Armada Games. Get in here and game.
But you know what I always say. Speak softly and drive a big tank.
Well, everyone, we are excited to have a special guest with us to talk a little bit about plots and the early meta of Way of the Force and some deck building fun and a recent second place. You got second place, yeah?
That's right.
Oh, that's
Sorry. Store champ finisher.
I was super happy with second.
At the Edmund Store Championship. So, Zach Bunn, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you all for having me.
Welcome,
I'm super excited. Huge fan of what you guys do. Always loved community-based content. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. So, if you can, before we get started with these plots, if you can just tell us a little bit about what had happened. What had happened at the Store Championship?
The short version is I don't know how much you guys know or don't know, but we've been doing a thing called Covenant Masters, which is an event series we're doing that's very draft centric. So Way of the Force came out, and this coming weekend we actually have one of the qualifiers happening. So I had a lot of my playtime has been dedicated to drafting. So myself, I started by building a quick version of like a Kylo double Executioner deck.
Not bad.
Not Kylo. I meant Anakin. They, get mixed up in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so I built that deck, and I played a couple games, and it was pretty apparent pretty quick that it wasn't going to get there by the time of the event. So I switched to Kylo Anakin, which is a deck that I've played a whole lot of.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing a blog this week about the deck and basically making my case on why I think Anakin is a better choice for Kylo 2 than Snoke. But that's a different topic altogether. And so, anyways, I played that deck. It came together pretty quickly. Steven and I played at a Trilogies Galactic Qualifier at Adepticon, so I had a lot of practice with like that pair in particular. But then he has been obsessed with. He always likes to run the weirdest things possible. So, yeah, he loves the pocket of deck that's like almost real, but like maybe with a little bit of skill and a little bit of luck, he can actually win a tournament with it. So Gungans, of course, were just like screaming his name from the get-go.
I feel him.
So,
I get it.
Yeah, me and another guy that works here named Bryce were talking about going to this Store Championship in Edmond, and Steven hadn't really been playing Destiny for like a month or two, just been busy, and he asked me if I could build him a Gungan deck. So he actually put an initial list together, and he was super busy that week. So I tested it 2 or 3 games at League Night, and the list was just not great. But then after a few iterations, we kind of finally got it there. And, I think he was hoping, and we'll be, like you said, we'll be talking about it on this week's episode of the Covenant Cast pretty extensively, just the deck, my deck, his deck, the process, why it was so good. But the first time I played against it, it was funny because it was just like, I know that this deck isn't good right now, but I also knew that it took Kylo Anakin a long time to actually just kill it. And so it was really just a matter of what are you going to do with that time? And if you actually find something worthwhile to do, it could actually be pretty good. And then so short story, obviously, we ended up meeting in the finals, which is incredible. I mean, anytime you meet one of your best friends or a playtest partner at the finals of an event like that, you can't really ask for more. So that was super fun. But it was really funny because like I'm playing Kylo Anakin, and I play very aggressively. And so I actually beat my top 8 and top 4 opponent before he even started his top 4 games. And so then I'm just waiting, and they play their game, and he gets through, and then he just trashes me. Just utter trashing. So we'll be covering quite extensively on this week's episode of the cast for like the full story and the way the deck works. We're both going to be posting our lists and stuff, but I know a lot of people are really curious how exactly the Gungans did it, and they did it as annoyingly as you might expect.
That's awesome. I love it.
So what you're saying?
That's all I could hope for.
What you're saying is I need to just continue to play my conflicted kids and not stray from what I know.
That's right. That's basically the moral.
That's all I took out of the story here.
Well, I feel like Zach's done a fantastic job. I mean, like, how long did you play Hanrei when everybody else let it die? Like, I think that says a lot about getting a deck and sticking with it, and you still did really well with Hanrei.
Well, and I like what you said is you went back to playing what you knew. I think that's key to going into most any tournament is being comfortable in your deck and knowing your play strategy. Because every time you play any deck, you learn something new every single time. So if you've already played it 100 times and you already know the deck, then what's to say that someone in this new meta hasn't played that many games, half that many games? So how would they know how to play it as well as you know how to play your deck? So that's a very good choice in this early meta.
It's really easy when a new set comes out in particular to get focused on the shiny new cards. And so that's actually something I do quite often at like store championships or regional style events when that's what I at the Dallas regional earlier this year. I took Hanrei and got top 4. And it like the legacies had just come out like the week before. And people were like kind of getting close to solving the whole Hondo equation. There were a handful of those players. But yeah, everyone was just kind of obsessed with trying the new thing. And it turns out the old decks were still pretty good, and they also got new cards. So that's a pretty strong tactic if you're going into an event close to the release of a set.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or just play Gungans.
Play Gungans.
Play Gungans.
I knew it. Like I'm so like because I was so rooting for those guys because they're just ridiculous and I love that. And I jokingly say that they were made for me because I roll terribly 90% of the time. And so I was just like, this is awesome. Like even if they never win another event, like that was just fun to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the fun thing is that they get better the worse they roll when they activate, actually.
Yeah.
So if you're a bad roller,
it's totally in my favor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
What I need in my life.
So let's get into kind of one of the more interesting aspects of Way of the Force, I think, is we saw plots come about in Legacies. They were used, but they were more of like if I can get it in my deck, I will, and it may give me a little bit of advantage. Now, plots are a little more strategic, and they're some of them are color centric, and some interesting. Almost like a couple of them even have like accomplishments or goals to achieve. And I think it's a really interesting aspect that they brought into it. And we're starting to see some decks built around plots themselves, or at least trying to have the plot in mind when being built. So without taking too much time on each of them and kind of ending with, I think, everyone's current favorite, although we could all have different opinions on that, my current favorite. Taking them in order of point value, the Boonta Eve Classic, which is, I think, the only neutral plot we got in this set. An interesting kind of a quest-based plot in a way. After you resolve one of your pod racer die, you may place one resource on that pod racer. If there are 4 or more resources own it. Set each copy of this plot aside and gain 4 resources. This is not one I think we're going to see a whole lot of, but I think it's awfully thematic, and I think it's going to be fun for people to play and accomplish and fit that niche, unless I'm not seeing something, because I'm not that smart.
I think it's something for like a vehicle deck, and you're building toward like a planetary bombardment or some sort of big devastating LR cannon or something like that, and that's all you're really building for. It's a vehicle deck that has the room for 2, is what I see.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I agree that I think it's a pretty thematic. It's thematically very cool. And I think part of the problem with it is that it just takes so many turns to make happen.
Yeah.
That by the time you're gaining the resources, you've probably either won or lost the game already. And so I could especially see this getting a lot better if games get longer. Which I'm hopeful for. I know Jeremy said that on a couple of interviews that he ultimately wants the game to be a little longer than it was, especially back in the like Pomaz.
Oh yeah.
Nines days, right? It's like, I won on turn 1. That was fun, wasn't it?
You don't even get the seat warm before the game's over. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the natural restriction for me, because I think it's pretty cool if you have the points and you're running vehicles and whatnot, and you can make it happen. But even then, it's like a planetary bombardment on turn 5 probably isn't going to swing the game one direction or another.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, you finally get it out at that point. And it may be one of those cards that we'll see a secret sauce come about in another set or two if we get more various kinds of pod racers that could have more on the table. Because right now each side only has 2, right? The neutral and then either Anakin or Sebulba. So it's not going to get fired off. It'd be kind of fun if if this was leading towards the idea of a theme construction event where maybe both of you had to bring this card and you actually have that kind of race to get those resources.
We've actually we've talked about hosting a Ubuntu Eve Classic where you have to run the
cool
because it's rigged. Another thing too is that technically, right, you need to trigger the plot to get the resources, but like other cards could add resources to these pod racers. So if you had a way to speed that up, where like you could get 2 or 3 resources on the first turn on it through various card effects and stuff, like I think it's like by any means or something, you do a damage to yourself to remove a die. That kind of place a resource on support to do a thing. That could also work, because if you're hitting 4 extra resources on turn 2, that could actually that could be relevant.
Yeah,
that could help. Yep.
So interesting. The other 2-point plot in this set was the home turf advantage. Bring 2 battlefields to the game, and if your battlefield would be chosen, you can choose one of your 2 battlefields instead, set the other one aside. I think this has some really interesting implications if you've got a card that references a battlefield that's not currently in play. I think if we can bring out the Ascension gun, and with this plot, we can make it a thing. We can make Ascension gun a thing, people. Ascension gun and Yoda. I don't know.
It have to be
theory crafting.
Yellow, red,
well,
right?
I was surprised. The first time I played this plot was in a draft. And it was really just interesting because it was like, you obviously don't have to choose your plot until it's time for your plot to be chosen. And so, like, if your opponent says, "Hey, I want to choose your battlefield," you get that option at that moment, which is actually pretty interesting because, like, if you're playing a deck that you think is going to be slower, you might have Sith Temple that'll let you do damage. But if you play a deck that's going to be faster, maybe you have a plot that isn't as good on the claim. So at least in draft, it was kind of useful. I could see the same with like Emperor's Throne Room, where like maybe I don't want to give Hondo, Yoda shields and a great battlefield for themselves. But if I'm playing against someone that doesn't have specials, then I can hit the Throne Room and now I get this exclusive benefit. And that seems like the 1 and 2 cost plots are more like round out your list kind of plots.
Sure.
Whereas the more expensive ones kind of become like the centerpiece.
Yeah, build center.
As I'm sure we'll get to when we get to the 4-point yellow plot.
Yeah.
Right. Oh man, that's
clarification. Do you have to show them your second battlefield before they choose your battlefield?
Doesn't sound like it.
I think part of the like setup rules of the game is like putting your battlefield out. So I think you do have to lay them out, and then they would have to like basically say, "Hey, I'm going to pick your battlefield." They win the roll, and then you get to make a choice.
That's actually a really good idea of bringing the crappy one and then the really good one.
Yeah, you're like whoop.
Yeah.
You're playing against a solo Sabine. You're probably going to pick the crappy battlefield.
Yeah.
Or if I would love us to get battlefields that actually have some kind of like negative effect, where if you control the battlefield when you would gain resources, gain 1 less or whatever, so that like instead of claiming the battlefield, you ended up just passing. If that's a thing for you, but then battlefield control gets interesting and all kinds of wild. I mean, it could be, I don't even know. Anytime you take damage, take an extra indirect damage if you control this battlefield. Who knows? Yeah. You could go wild with it.
That's an interesting thought.
That's awesome. Yeah. Moving into the realm of 3-point plot cards, blockade. After you set up, force an opponent to lose 1 resource. Seems to be Zach's favorite, given by the thumbs up he just did.
Yeah, I don't mind this one at all if it's the one I'm playing.
Yeah, man, this plot is my jam. This is what's up. Like,
there has been a lot of talk
What did you
recently
say?
about. There's been a lot of discussion recently about resource management early on in the game. I think that's something that the certain parts of the community are focusing on, that aspect and how important it can be, and just giving your opponent the unable to play anything good on round one definitely gives you that advantage. I'm after seeing all these other plots that have kind of like lasting effects, this one's like, oh, okay, I spent 3.3 of my character points to just drop a resource from him, but I don't know.
I feel like this is the one you want for draft. Like, I feel like I would want this one every time in draft.
True story.
Yeah, it's super good. I mean, I think the thing about this plot is, I'm glad it's 3 points, and I'm glad that it's bad, that it has to be. There's a lot of restrictions here because I think having your opponent start with one less resource at the start of the game is so powerful, and it all links back to like the resource damage curves, which is something I talk about a lot. But like, that is game altering. Like, it's unbelievable how much that actually shakes up the game, and I think a lot of people would be surprised if they actually get it on the table. How much it affects what the other player is capable of doing and how it affects their damage curve for the whole game, right? Like, you don't realize, I think, how much your deck is built around starting with 2 resources and getting 2 more each round. So, let alone if you throw in someone like Newt Gunray, who you can actually keep around, they can obviously discard their cards if they want. But like, if you're focused on resources like that, I think you could create a pretty painful deck.
Yeah, I agree. This is such great control. I love any control deck where you are taking resources away that quickly, and Blockade's great, but that 3 cost is tough. If you're trying to build a 27 point list is a little tight right now, at least.
Yeah, and that's why I think I like it more for draft, because I feel like you may have a better opportunity to squeeze it in there.
Yeah.
You won't be limited to the well. No, you wouldn't be limited to the hero villain thing. So
that would be fun if I brought this and then somebody else brought that one that's I can't think of the name of it, but it has Lando on it, where you get to start with an extra one. Then it just
Profitable connection.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. And so you'd be like, well, crap, that backfired. But that would be. I'm sure it'll happen at some point. But
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I mean, a deck that I ran for a long time was double First Order Stormtrooper, Elite Anakin with Profitable Connection, and that immediately just changes to Blockade.
Yeah.
I like that way better. Like, 3 resources is fine, but like, you at -1 buys me a lot of time, and with 3 characters and a lot of control cards, it's just going to be really hard for you to actually get enough damage on all those characters.
Yeah, it almost sets you back a turn, or it sets your opponent back a turn.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's cool. Yeah, I dig that one too.
All right.
So the other 3-point plot was long-term plan, which itself is actually an action. Exhaust this plot to place 1 resource on it, or to resolve one of your dice, increasing its value by the number of resources on this plot. And now that I'm reading this out loud to myself, interesting that you're not required to remove the resources that are on it when you want to increase your die value. And I wonder if we'll ever get to a point where we'll have events that allow you to ready a plot. If we have enough of these types of things come along, because we've got them for supports now. But anyways, proceed. Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we did get that kind of a card, it'd be pretty cool with a Boon to Eve, right? Because you could trigger that multiple times to get the resources.
Yeah.
But there was someone running this at the Store Championship this past weekend, and I think it was like I know there was a Jetta Partisan, and I feel like there was a Yoda involved. But like, they were doing some serious work with this plot, where they would roll like a 2 indirect and turn it into a 5. And they were just doing some pretty wild things. And then I've also seen it. I got demolished several times in Way of the Force drafting with this card, because like it's if your point costs happen to work out that way, the value this can add in a draft. Drafts just take longer. Your decks don't do as much damage as quickly, so you have a lot more turns for like Boon to Eve or this plot to really add a lot of value.
And I could see a good mill build. Once you get to that turn 3, build up the resource on this card by turn by turn 4, which those
yeah.
games tend to last longer, you're just discarding a hand like after the first dice roll every time.
That's pretty ridiculous.
So,
so
that could be.
That's a
Yeah.
table flipping move.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'd be so angry.
Come on, discard. Oh, your hand. Sorry, every turn.
Oh,
So once
Every turn.
So once we get cards like ready a plot or something like that, then long-term plan gets really, really aggressive when you can
Oh yeah.
put a
We may
put a
we
resource
may never
on
see.
it. Oh, we may never because of something like this, but you put a resource on it, exhaust it, ready it, then instantly resolve something extra for 1. That's a lot. Very cool.
Yeah, or even
plot.
just-
You get
2 times in the same round of +3 on anything is pretty good.
yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
No kidding. It'll get real ugly real quick.
That cost
And I
is
think-
perfect at 3.
Long-term plan, I think, is really the first one of these 6 that you would consider starting here and building your character team. I think.
Yeah. Like
'cause-
Blockade though.
I agree. I think Blockade's great. Let's go back to Blockade really quick.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've got me. That's the problem is, so far, I want to try all of these now after discussing them. So I'm like,
I was gonna say, Jason, I feel like you're like hesitant to like Blockade. Like you're not quite sold on it yet.
He's not a
I
control
don't
player.
know. It seems from well, no, well, see, and maybe that's it. Maybe I haven't played enough on that side. 27 points for me feels that's a hard one for me to say just for this. But I bet after I played a game or two of having my opponent start with 1 resource and seeing that, and like you said, seeing that damage curve, you're winning me over. You're winning me over.
Just think it's basically 1 less die for the first round.
Yeah.
And it's really stuffing them for the second round too, because I'm sure they're backpedaling on mitigation at that point. So it's really a table turner very, very early.
And it also has a weird effect of like your opponent will see Blockade before they're even like mulliganing, and so it's going to dictate the cards they keep and the cards they shuffle back in. And so when they're used to either playing a 2-cost upgrade on turn 1 or not. And then, like, now all of a sudden they're keeping their 1 and 0 cost cards, and like that's going to change the cost density of their entire deck for the rest of the game.
Yep.
So it just has this like weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
We're gonna have to get you a list of 27-point character pairings so you can see that I think there's some meaty goodness out there still. But
I'm sure there is.
If there hadn't been like Balance of the Forest, I mean, like, which is a thing. But Phasma or Nines with basically
Nines
Anakin or whoever is a good enough pair to get it done, I think. But anyways, if you're like Jason, you're watching this and you're thinking, Blockade's fine, but it's not that great. I really just seriously get it on the table, and I think you'll be convinced.
All right,
same.
There you go.
I dig it.
All right,
I'm convinced. You convinced. I don't know about Jason, but I'm on board.
Well, there you go. Now into our 4-point plot cards. Both of these are pretty tremendous. For the yellow neutral, we have Calling in Favors. Before you play an event that costs 3 or more, you may exhaust this plot to decrease its cost by 1 or by 2 instead if you have exactly 1 character in play.
That can sting. Like, I'm just thinking of all the opportunity of... But again, I think it's going to be a little hard, and maybe Zach will prove me wrong on this one, but I feel like 4 is awful hard to get in there.
Well, I'm very intrigued by the internet rumblings of just starting with Sabine. Have you guys seen that?
I have some, but I'm a little surprised.
So, like, it sounds crazy, but then, like, you realize that Elite Sabine with this plot, immediately you get -2 on an event. So Hyperspace Jump is 1. Never Tell Me the Odds is 1. And the deck, obviously, especially against 2-character decks, it can just like nuke a character very quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's at least intriguing. And I think what I like about it is like it's opening up an option of a way to build a deck that really wasn't there before, which is like, at this point, I would take a 9-point plot that makes Vader awesome, and I would run just Vader, and I'd be happy about it. So we'll see. I mean, I agree, like 26 points for the characters can be really tough. And and then like once a character is defeated, like you start getting this benefit. But it's also the kind of thing where, like, especially on the villain side, you have something like Price of Failure, where you can have your one big, and then you have like a support character with it, and then all of a sudden, like, you play Price of Failure, you stand, your next event's -2, and you can do some pretty mean stuff.
Okay, so I just looked it up. There's only 8 events that cost 3 or more in the whole game. So that does
cost 3 or more.
3 or more, 8 cards. That's
Yeah,
kind of limiting, but they're huge. Like Delve,
I was gonna say,
the
they're
Crosshairs,
huge
Law and
cards.
Order, Mobilize, Snare, 3 Steps Ahead, Control, and Dark Ritual. Oh, and then you
So
also
that's where I'm about, because it's like, imagine you not Dark Sacrifice. Gosh, I just lost the name of the card. 0 cost, defeat someone, stand another character. Price of Failure. So you price a failure character, and then now your Dark Ritual costs 3. So
Yeah.
you can actually bring them back pretty cheaply with this plot. So, like, I don't know who those characters are. It's probably going to be like a 15 to 17 point character with like a 7 or 8 or 9 point. Like, even picture like a yellow villain with Talzin single die. And then it's like you activate Talzin, you get the die side that you want, drop Price of Failure, bring her back for 3. Like, it's just, there's some weird shenanigans that are absolutely going to happen with a plot like that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And even just in general, like, at the end of a game, having it one-on-one, where if all your events are potentially either free or -2, or the first event, that it's a powerful ability. I'm glad it costs 4, honestly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Can you? I can't imagine this at 3.
I might be wrong on that because I don't see Rise Again in here.
I was wondering about Rise Again. Is that just in the one? Is that just in like the Legacy set?
No, I don't know why it's not showing it. I'm on SWDB right now, so I don't know.
So, like, I'm immediately thinking of, like,
but there's
let's say
maybe
you have
10.
Kylo 2 at 17, a 4-point plot. Now we're at 21. You get a 9-point yellow villain to throw in there, and, like, I don't know. It's interesting. They're probably going to kill Kylo first, right? So even if they do, and you have something like Dark Ritual, now you get to play Dark Ritual for 3 and put Kylo back in play.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, it's pretty interesting.
It is. It's definitely something. But I mean, if you don't get the cards, then you're not. Then that's your game, right? You're just. You could be taken out like turn 1 theoretically, before you even pulled something like that, Dark Ritual.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're gonna kill like Kylo and a 9-point character on turn 1, you're probably gonna lose anyway.
Well, that's kind of a lot. Yeah.
It doesn't much matter what your characters are at that point.
No.
But a 9-point character is not going to resource gen like you would want it to, unless you're running someone like Anakin. Well, what's Anakin?
Or Ezra.
Oh yeah, or Ezra.
Ezra wouldn't be bad.
So one of those little resource generators.
Yeah, and those are yellow characters, so like, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
especially with some of those yellow hero events are just insane. Like,
it's certainly something to think about.
And I like in this one, calling in favors is very. There's, like you said, there's a lot of shenanigans that could happen, and you just have to start figuring out what thread you want to build through your deck to get maximum use out of this plot. One that I think that is a little, I guess, a little more self-explanatory, and I think that's why people have gravitated to it early on, is Built to Last. The hero plot, each unique upgrades has the redeploy keyword, and after you play a unique upgrade, you may exhaust this plot to gain 1 resource. This is definitely a plot that basically says, here's the card and here's the deck you're building, because this is what I want you to do, which has been interesting. And I think this has been a powerful card to see, because it has a high resource curve, and you can end up with 5 upgrades on 1 blue character at the end of the game if you've got a couple honed skills out there.
Have you guys played that deck or played against that deck?
I have played it. I've played Luke Ezra version of it, but not extensively.
How do you feel about it after playing it not extensively?
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like you're leading me on somewhere.
I'm just curious. I haven't.
No one asked me questions on my show.
I asked the questions here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't played it. That's for some reason, I don't know why. That's like the least interesting plot to me.
Interesting.
I can't explain it. It seems okay, but like, I like Blue. I like Blue Hero. So I guess I should maybe think about it. I'm just not sure that is going to. It's not like that doesn't feel game breaking to me like the yellow yellow plot does.
You know, so far, so far, I mean, you know, the few games I have played with it, you know, being Hone Skill can come out fairly early because obviously it's zero cost support. And I'm only playing, I think, 9 upgrades, 9 or 10, all of them unique except for Ancients. And only 1 copy of each, a couple copies of Lightsaber Pool. But being able to, you know, it doesn't really matter who you're putting them on. As long as you have 2 blue characters up there, you can play anywhere. And then once one of those 2 dies, you know, you're playing kind of that middle road characters anyway. So both about, you know, both in that 12-13 range. It's interesting because, you know, like I said, once the one goes down, as long as you played your turn right, you can basically ready all your upgrades again, right? Because you can move them all over. And now you've got 1 character with 5 upgrades. All of them have at least 50% chance of rolling some sort of damage. Because most of your sabers, most of your blue weapons have at least 2 blacks and a blue on it, or 2 blacks in the special. So and then you're just rolling in. It's just nasty. The downside about Blue Hero is removal is bizarre. Playing a mono Blue Hero deck, removal is not easy.
That's actually some of my favorite removal cards.
Oh, they're cool. Like they're cool to play, but it's just like I've got to remove my. I mean, okay, playing a guard on a +3 melee is pretty awesome. It's like you did what for how much?
Yeah,
I removed all your damage.
You took away all my good dice. That's frustrating. Yeah, and that's actually, you know, I mean, I'm curious. If it's the case that it's consistent enough to get like 3 or 4 or 5 upgrades on a character at the end of the game, there's obviously that's pretty good. Like if you can get to that stage of the game, I could see that working out in your favor. But like, go ahead.
Oh, I'd like to play against more. I think the deck I was playing was probably a smidge slower than what I'm ultimately going to end up facing with it. So I'm wondering if it's fast enough. But the resource curve is good, right? As long as you're putting out a unique upgrade each turn, and especially if you can get an early Way of the Force, right? No, 1 blue resource, 1 blue event upgrade, 1 cheaper. Power of the Force, Way of the Force.
Yeah, power. Wait, no.
Nope, other card.
What are you asking?
Awakenings, right?
We never know.
There you go. Okay, got you.
Awakening support that drops a upgrade by 1.
Yoda and Obi-Wan
things. It binds all things.
It binds all things.
Yes, that one.
Star Wars LCG that was called May the Force Be With You, so I always get that wrong. Every time.
Yeah, that one. Well, if you get that early, then I mean you're putting down everything for 2 or 1, and then you're getting $1 back every time you do it. So the curve is there. You can get them out. The question is, you know, do I have enough removal in my deck to last long enough to get them all out? That's
I think a good litmus test for that deck would be just play against any Kylo 2 deck.
Oh man, yeah,
sure.
His damage curve is going to be pretty heavy against a mono blue. And so, like, if you can withstand him, I think you'll be fine.
I'll just hold on to my Ray Sabers, or my Ray Staffs.
Oh, man.
Just hold on to them.
Yeah, it's my one card.
Oh, you hit Ray Staff again. Oh, there's good. Oh, sorry.
Weird. That's funny.
Let's talk about Built to Last.
That's what we were just talking about.
Oh.
That's
sorry.
it. We're done.
We're done.
Welcome to 5 minutes ago.
Sorry. I don't know what.
That's awesome.
We hit it and quit it pretty quick, Mike. So, in your defense,
we were rolling into it. I'm trying to do research over here and get numbers for us. And
here's the question for you guys that I'd be curious to know. So, next year at Worlds, which of these plots, if any, are going to make it the furthest in the tournament? So, which one ranks the highest? Total speculation. They may not even be good in 6 months, but thoughts on which one actually makes the grade?
That is a fantastic question.
I think someone who's really clever and has a lot of endurance will make calling in favors amazing. But I feel like it's going to be a very strenuous game to play because there's going to be a lot of decision points.
So I've heard that there's some good built to last builds out there right now. So maybe built to last.
I'm sticking with blockade. Like, not just because, like, no, like now that you've really talked it up, that one almost makes the most sense to, and I like red, so that's the other reason, I suppose.
That's awesome.
I'm not a mono blue. I'm not a blue player. Like, I like red yellow.
That's fair.
That's why I don't do very well because.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably had some rough tournaments.
Yeah, that's why I don't make it very far because I'm like, blue.
I'm happy that you all three had different answers.
It's exciting to see.
We don't conform, Zach. We don't conform at all.
It's exciting to see a set of plots that are pretty awesome. Like that have some staying power.
Yeah. I think it's cool to see them basically going to new territory in terms of these plots. And I have a feeling every time I talk about basically any concept in Destiny, I just always feel like they haven't even come close to tapping the full potential of where they could go with this.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited to see where the next couple of sets go, what's in the next base set 7. And I think plots are a really cool component. Even the idea that you could build a single Sabine deck with a plot and have a chance at all is pretty cool to me.
Absolutely. So there's only 6 of them. So there's all our plots for the set. So Mike, let's wrap up the show with a question.
Let's do it.
Best segue ever.
Well,
it's not segue.
There can be no mistakes this time.
Kim, do you remember what our question was? Did you write it?
It's on the thing.
That's what I thought. I deleted it.
It's on the thing.
We have this thing called a script.
I know.
It tells you what you should do next.
Do you want me to read the question?
Secret sauce.
I know this question.
You want to do it?
I
can.
Well, it's another week and another question here at the Chance.
No, what about last week's question? What happened to last week's question?
I don't know what happened to last week's
I don't know.
question. I will say none of us know where it went, where in the interwebs it now lives, but I hope it has a happy life in saltine crackers.
I do. Yeah, so if you listened to last week's show and you said, hey, that question you asked in the show, where'd it go?
Where did we answer
we're not
this
really
question?
We're not really sure. We're not really sure where it went. It did not hit Facebook, which is fine.
Mark Zuckerberg.
It's fine.
We thought it did. We asked it to go to Facebook, and then
then it didn't.
It went on its own little way.
But what's really nice is that we have this guy named Zach Bunn, and he's here, so he's just going to answer it for everybody. So the question that we asked this week, or at least we tried to, was what decks do you predict we'll see at the top of the meta?
Yikes! You want me to answer for everyone?
Would you have said Gungans if I'd asked you this last week? You are going to
answer for the world.
Let me pull up a list really quick.
Oh, there's a list.
Wow,
no, it's my list.
Okay.
Actually, that list might not be relevant.
Let's do it. Bring it
now that Gungans have won?
Yeah, I mean, Gungans changed everything. Thank you, Steven. I think Steven's watching, so I gotta give him compliments.
Say what's up to Steven.
What's up, Steven? He's probably had
Steven?
A grin on his face since... I feel like he's had a grin on his face since at least...
Since he knocked me out of the tournament?
I feel like he may have had a grin on his face. Look, I got Gungans to work.
Basically, the way of the Force meta, what decks do I think will be on top?
Sure. Early predictions. It's early. It's very early.
That's difficult. That's really difficult. I think that a lot of the usual players are still really good. So all the decks you might have seen on Gauntlets going into Worlds, I don't think a lot of those got worse. Obviously, with the balance of the Force, Sabine and Isla took a hit. But even I think, Kylo Anakin's still good. Hero vehicles are still good. Hero Mill is still good. You go down the list. I think more than anything right now, I just think that some of the the hot decks that are being talked about are just overrated. So I said at the top, and I don't mean that like, I don't know, like dismissively, but like even the Cad Bane Snoke, like just craziness that's going on. I get that like discarding 4 cards from someone's hand before they can really do anything is a big deal. But at the same time, like, I just feel like that's really hard to pull off.
Mm-hmm.
And the deck, like, not mid game maybe, but like early enough to really just like auto win a game. And it's the kind of deck, it reminds me of like, it's the kind of deck that'll go like 60-70% in Swiss, and it might make the cut. And when it does, it might win a couple of best of threes, but then like at some point it kind of reminds me of like Sabine Ezra, honestly, with less teeth, where like Sabine Ezra just needs to run into Kylo like we saw at Worlds, or maybe at the same time have like a couple cold rolls in a row, because like they're really going for this big moment, and if the big moment doesn't work out, they might just crumble. Mm-hmm. But I think Snoke, like the Snoke hype is a little stronger. I think he's good, but like I'm just not sold yet. And I also think people are coming back a little bit back down to earth on the new Luke, in terms of like, I think he's good. I think he's potentially good enough to be tier 1, but at the same time, like he's not just obvious or easy or going to win every game because of how good he is. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say. I know there's cards I have my eye on, that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. I think Blockade is one of them. Blockade, as an example, if you get paired against Cad Bane Snoke, is immediately a problem for them. Because I get it, Cad's dice are really good when you have Snoke's ability, but like -1 resource means that you're not going to discard 4 before I go. And then as long as I claim, I'll at least get to do something before you annihilate me on turn 2. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I haven't really had a ton of time to digest full-on Constructed, and that's something I'm looking forward to diving into. But a lot of the early stuff that I see people freaking out about, I'm just not that concerned about. And I'm way more interested in some of the like weirder stuff. I think if anything, there will be some weird deck that surfaces, whether it's a plot or like Blockade with 3 random characters or Built to Last, that'll just play the fundamentals of the game differently enough that people won't know how to respond to it, like the Gungans.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Well, didn't we really see this with the last set too? That there were, right when the meta got hot, we had all these new cards. There were a small handful of decks that just bubbled straight up to the top. Cad being in that whole grouping last time as well, and then they just went away. Like once the meta kind of settled, they were gone. I mean, you just didn't hear from them again. And I wonder if that's something, and maybe it won't be, because maybe we're getting more settled with each new set. But I just wonder if we're going to see something similar to that this time. That what's bubbling to the top right now is not going to be there towards the end of this meta.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that is just the fact that like people start learning how to play against those popular things.
Yep.
And once you kind of, that's how I feel about Snoke, where it's like once you kind of see how he works and what's going on, I don't think it's that complicated. I played against a handful of people who were on Snoke Kylo 2, and I was playing Kylo 2 Anakin, and like it wasn't even close. And so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people are going to be really good with Snoke, and I'm going to get destroyed by him, and I'm going to regret every word that I said on this podcast. But yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see it. I think there was a little bit of talk about him, but I still have a feeling that DJ is going to be something.
Yeah.
I really think anyone that just does automatic damage from controlling your opponent's dice is probably going to be all right.
I would think so. Seems to make logical sense.
It makes sense, right? And now and there is so much cool stuff in this set. It's hard to even find the time to try it all out. And it's kind of waiting for the collective mass of the community to kind of to all try it out
all for us. Yeah,
to do it all for us. Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, you can only try so many things.
Sure.
And then you kind of just have to rely on the other thousands of players to do the rest. I will say one other bold prediction. This is probably my boldest prediction.
Okay.
Bold prediction.
Yeah, I think that Dr. Aphra will have to be fixed at some point because I think she's too good.
But she
I was
doesn't.
waiting
have a
on
pair
Mike
yet.
to put his dukes up yet. That's what I
Well,
was
there's
waiting
no.
to see.
She has no pair yet, so she doesn't have to be fixed yet. That's probably why we haven't seen it. But once we get a few more droids in the villain side, I think it'll definitely be a little outrageous for.
Yeah, I can see that.
Afra.
I think
I want to see her do something, but I don't
she's
think we're there
crazy.
yet.
I think she's really crazy.
Yep.
So we'll see. But I have a feeling whether now or after a couple more sets, it doesn't matter. I think at some point she'll be a problem. Like, not just like, oh, she's a really good deck. It'll be like, oh, we need to fix this kind of a problem.
It'll be fun, maybe, till they fix it. But
I'm trying to find the
one tournament that someone breaks it, and then past that, it'll be like, all right, thanks for dealing with that.
Oh, there it is. I found my predictions document. Hold on a second.
You have a predictions document. I've been outclassed.
July 17th.
Oh, you're documenting my prediction.
Documenting your predictions.
We document all predictions so that when we
except
say
that one time
I
that
called
I made
it,
and he didn't. This is how this started, Zach, because I made a great call. Jason wrote it on a piece of paper and then zoop, gone, and I had no proof that I called it.
What was the call?
I can't remember now. Is the problem?
It was a release date, I think, for Legacy.
I think it was a release date for Legacy.
Supposedly.
Now we know.
Air quotes.
So, hey, I'm going to come back to you whenever Afra is broken.
Right. Hey, July 12th, Zach Bunn. Dr. Afra will have to be fixed because she is too good.
Will have to be fixed.
Have to be.
Zach, I'm curious, before we wrap it up, I'm curious, are you seeing as much mill in your neck of the woods as I'm seeing in mine and I'm hearing on the interwebs? Or are the mill players just getting more vocal? Because that's what Ruben's doing. I don't know that's really winning. He just won't shut up. So I'm wondering if that's
more.
They're now admitting their problem.
Yeah.
I guess my question for you would be, how many percentage of your players are playing mill?
Now my local store championship it kind of came together quickly. So we only had 8, but out of the 8, 3 of those were mill and mill 1.
Yeah, that's almost 50%, 37%, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's a decent amount of mill. We have a really healthy community, and so we have a really good mix of decks that show up. There's only 1 or 2 of the, we'll probably have 20 or 30 on a Wednesday night league night, and there's probably only like 1 or 2 people who net deck. And they just have to play like power decks, which is totally great for us all to test against.
Yeah.
And then everyone else does a really, really great job of exploring and experimenting and trying new things and playing weird cards. I'd say we're a pretty weird meta, a group of people. Like there's the decks that come out, but there's probably like 4 or 5 out of those people who are the people who are willing to play a mill deck. And it's not the only deck they usually have. It's just one of their decks. So on a weekly basis, there might be 2 or 3 mill decks that show up, which isn't bad. It never feels like, but it was never the case. So even when like Pomaz was super popular and Nines, OTK, and then OTK was popular, we'd have a couple people playing it, but not like half the field or something.
Yeah, and that's how we usually were. Like, it was fairly well balanced, so it was surprising that all of a sudden, because most of these, we didn't see a lot of mill before, but it just, there it was. So I don't know if it's just in that, hey, let's play around with it a little bit because it's early. Yeah. Now, if Ruben were on the show today, he would say that, like, mill's winning worlds and that kind of stuff, but I don't know that it's there.
Man, I'll tell you what, winning a world championship with mill is like the most grueling task you can ever give a human.
I can't imagine.
Sure.
No way.
That's a grind.
It might also just be because, like, we got Cassian, we got Leia. I don't know if it had either of those cards in it. But when 2 of your big characters from a set are conducive to mill, I mean, I'm not exactly surprised that there's some mill showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Even I'm tempted to get Leia on the table, and I strongly do not like mill.
See, I'm not caving with you on that one yet. I can't. I can't do it. Mill makes me want to flip a table when I lose to it. Like, it's the way to get under my skin. I'm not there yet. I haven't built a deck yet, but we'll see. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I get it. I'm the kind of player that likes. So like right after Spirit of Rebellion came out, we had our Store Championship here, and it was super early. And one of the cards I was just obsessed with was Price of Failure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I played Vader, Royal Guard, Price of Failure. And like I'm the kind of player that likes to sacrifice my heroic guard on turn 1 to go with Vader twice and just like murder a character. So then it's like, you know, Vader versus like insert one character here. And that also drives certain people crazy. So I get joy from that. I understand that other people get joy from not letting me play the game that I wanted to play. So I guess I'll let them have it.
That's fair. I played 9s for a while, so I guess that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, but I also tend to play decks that can deal with mill because they just do so much damage.
Which I think is what mill will continue to run into. That will be their uphill battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for everyone else, we promise this week's question will get posted. Head over to our Facebook page, pinned at the top.
We'll put a leash on it this time.
We're going to try. We're asking this week what cards from Way of the Force is encouraging mill to rise in this really early meta. And we're going to discuss everyone's answers on next week's show. Zach, what's going on with Team C that you want to let everyone know before you head out?
Man, I'll tell you what, it's like a Destiny field day, which gets me really excited. I'm a huge fan of Destiny. I love the game, have always loved it. And so it's really exciting to see the game feel like it's in such a healthy spot and have so many decks and so much going on for the game. So I mentioned earlier Covenant Masters. That's an event series we're hosting at Covenant Tulsa. And it's basically draft. It's a draft championship. There's qualifiers. There's going to be a championship event in the first weekend of February. The top 6 from every qualifier qualify for that championship event. We just announced that the lead developer, Jeremy Zoran, is going to be at the championship, and we're going to have more announcements coming for that.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, we also have a pretty big sea change for us, because we make a lot of content that's geared around making it easy to learn and get into these tabletop gaming communities. And so we did the Learning Destiny series. But we also recently switched up. We have, for a long time, had subscriptions for a lot of games. And Destiny was kind of just something we didn't quite know how to handle at first. But we had recently updated our box subscriptions to basically be map with free shipping on 2 boxes or more. And again, it's really focused on just making it super easy for people to stay up with the game. Because there's a lot of people that don't have a good local game store or don't have the time to get down or want to make sure they get the stuff actually on release and stuff. So that recently happened. And then we got plenty more coming for Destiny. So always more stuff on the horizon. We revealed some one of the prizes from Masters is this like character board that holds the tokens and the dice and all this kind of stuff.
Those are slick, man. They look amazing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I have one because I got top 6. The next qualifier is this weekend, so hopefully I'm going to win my second one at that. But it's highly likely that at some point we might. We at the store championship, a bunch of people were asking like, "Oh my gosh, are you guys selling that?" We're not ever going to sell that version of it, but it is highly likely that we will sell a version of something like that. So, like I said, plenty to stay tuned. Also this week, if you're curious about the Gungans or why I chose Anakin over Snoke, we'll be talking about that on this week's episode of the Covenant.
Awesome. Very
Excellent.
Cool, man.
We'll be tuning in.
Yes, I think I speak for all of us, Zach, when we thanks so much for what you guys do for the community and all the great content that you guys put out. I know it's enjoyed by everybody. So thank you for all that.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I really mean it when I say this pretty much every time I'm on a podcast, but I think community-driven content like what you guys are doing is the heartbeat of a community like this. So please keep doing it. Happy to come on anytime you guys want me to, and I wish you the best of luck with the show.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks.
I'm so bummed I can't come, that I live too far away for that draft because everything looks amazing for it. Ohio. Far away from everything.
I wish I could move Tulsa closer to you.
Gosh, if you could make that happen, I'll see if I can get Ohio to move over a little bit, push Indiana down. But
yeah, I may.
Not that bad.
It's not as far. I don't think it would be as far a drive as Minnesota was for me. So that there is that.
I may know someone in Tulsa that may make that February thing just interesting enough to.
I love it.
I could probably talk Sarah into it.
The deck box looks amazing. Looks, and I love draft, so that's really. I'm glad you guys are doing like a big thing that's just for draft.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
very cool.
It's cool because like I don't know, we're in a unique position to do stuff like this, and like for us, the whole draft event series, right, is like we wanted to see draft really be a supported format because I think it's great. We've seen since the Rivals starter came out, there's huge growth in our community because of draft and what it's allowing us to do. And so the whole event's focused on participation and building community. So it's been really well received, and we're really excited about it. So I'm just pumped to get all the details on the championship and what announced, and we'll be doing that over the coming months.
That's awesome. We'll have to have you on again to talk it up before you guys do it.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Everyone, thanks for joining us this week. That wraps it for episode 95. Of course, you can follow us on all the socials at the Chance Cube over at Facebook. Feel free to hit us up, and Kim will respond to you because that's what she does.
It is
Kim's
true.
awesome. If not Kim, it's Matthew. He's okay, but
Matthew's pretty awesome too.
Yeah,
Kim just has more access to her phone at work because Wait, I didn't say any of those things.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thanks, Zach.
This has been The Chance Cube, a Star Wars Destiny podcast, a nonprofit organization dedicated to building community through gaming. Visit our website for all things Star Wars Destiny, including our price watch, meta tracker, and latest articles from the Chance Cube family. Find our latest videos on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and visit us at patreon.com/thechancecube. Your patronage allows us to grow this program and help us give back to the gaming community by sponsoring events, giveaways, and supporting our own community building initiatives. This is Mike Hill, the voice of the Chance Cube. Thanks for listening. The Chance Cube is not affiliated with Fantasy Flight Games, Lucasfilms, or the Walt Disney Company.